Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast episode 3. And this episode talk about the watch gap. The watch gap is the difference in wages between men and women who perform the same job under the same working condition. It's calculated from the difference between the average gross hourly earnings of all workers. The other day, I went discussing it with some friends, and today I asked the guest present with his definition. What is the watch gap for you? First, Rodrigo.
Oh, as you mentioned, the wage gap is the difference between the pays for the payment for a job between two different persons. It can be between a man and a woman, or it can be inclusive with other kind of people. For example, a white man can receive more money for do the same job as that do a black man. So not only exists between men and women, it also exists between different types of person, including different races, to say it in a some way, and different religion.
Uh, Angel Rafael.
Well, for me, the wage gap is the difference of income between men and women. Uh, this can be calculated, well, based on the average difference between the gross hourly earnings of all workers. This can affect, not as I say, my friend Rodrigo. This is only not between men and women. That can be cultural barriers and all of the stuff like that.
Demian.
Well, for me, it's a specific situation that occurs generally in female workers the that workers receive less percentage of salary than male employees. This is very common in Mexico, and I think that's it. It's a situation that occurs to female workers.
Alien.
So yeah, I have basically the same opinion on this. I think the wage gap is when two different or more than two different social groups of people get paid differently according to just like their social position, their religion, etc. As my friend Rodrigo says, it's not just about gender.
Okay. Okay, good answer. But when all this, the question that begins all this, there really is a wage pick. There really is a wage gap, uh, Rodrigo.
Well, yeah, there is a wage gap. The wage gap exists. This we can see more in the leadership position where or high positions, because there is no representation for minorities. For example, in some companies there is no high position for black men or women. So many of the positions are occupied by white men or simply men. And yeah, the wage gap exists and it's well documented, and many studies have seen this in the whole world.
Demian.
Yeah, for it exists. It's real. You can actually take a photo or evidence. There's evidence of the existence of the wage gap, and it's a really bad situation for in general all workers in different kinds. All this is basically discrimination to a gender just for being that gender. It's a bad situation that sadly exists.
Elian.
So yeah, as Damien said, there's evidence of this in everyday life, and I wanted to point out an example that not me, a friend of mine has experienced. Um, he was looking for a job on Facebook because he needed money to pay his scholarship, And when he did, he found a job listing that was like a minimum wage job. But in the post, the Facebook post, it said men's salary and women's salary. And the women's salary was lower than the men's salary for no apparent reason. It didn't demand any kind of experience or nothing. So it's a very apparent issue that is real and like very present in our lives.
Angel Rafael.
Well, for me, it exists because the other day I saw a study about that says that between 10 and 15% percentage is the difference between the salary of men and women. Even if it is a small percentage, it exists in the companies, empresses, and all types of works.
Well, for me, I forget mention it. For me, yes, it's the what you gap is the pay for only because of gender and many times for other reasons. And this is important for and also for me the this exists but not in the law but yes if and in the social in the society yes it is. Well, for question for you, how will you erase it, alien?
Um, Personally, I think the problem lies in Mexico, at least, in a more cultural foundation, because for uh, the longest periods of time, women have seen as weaker, like beings. Black people have been seen as weaker beings, and even now, like indigenous people, the word indio in Spanish is sometimes used as an insult. So to create a solution for this, we would have to start at education. Um, we need to stop teaching children that being in a minority or like in an oppressed group is a bad thing.
um, Angel Rafael.
Well, a form to erase this problem, it could be the implement of policies that force companies to pay the same amount of money to all workers, despite their gender, culture, cultural, religion, and all that stuff. We can start to implement that policies with little stores and then ascending with more and more big companies until reach all over the world.
uh, Rodrigo.
Mm, Well, farm to eradicate this wage gap will be, for example, create salary transparency um, policy where all the salaries can seen by other employees. So in this form, you can all the women employees can see the men's salary, and the men's salary can see the women, and the men employees can see the women's salary and compare if they are doing the same things, and they can claim something better in case they if they are doing the same and someone is paying less for the same job can claim that money.
Damian.
Mm, I will also do what Rodrigo proposed. I will promote the gender equality first. It, this specific thing is a pillar of the problem. More, more than the cultural stuff. Um, the gender equality is a serious problem in the salary gap. So promoting the gender equality will, I think, reduce this kind of situations. And of course, as Rodrigo and Elian said, the transparency in at the time of receive the salaries. I think that's the most important thing, more than the first that I was saying. And with that, I think it will be eradicated in a short time.
Well, for me, we must route out the problem. We must make a total social change of talk. It's complicated, but it's a real solution. But the machismo and all things, it's the beginning of this, and one or another law that applies greater punishment. Well, I have to finish the podcast with what has been said here changed. Oh, problem, sorry. Uh, with what has been said here, change your perspective, Uncle Rafael.
Well, from my perspective, the wage gap doesn't change. It's an indicator of inequality in the labor market and may reflect structural and cultural barriers that impede gender equality. So, therefore, reducing the wage gap is essential to promote equal opportunity and improve the economic well-being of all people.
Damian.
For me, the wage gap is something that it should not exist in these times because of all the decades have shown that we are all capable of being of do a certain job. In general, we are all prepared to do all kind of jobs. It's only the mind of the spirit of the person. It's not the gender.
Rodrigo.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I can't hear you the first time.
I'm sorry. With what has been said here, all said here, change your perspective.
Well, no, because my perspective is that the wage gap is something bad that persists in the society. And for me, the wage gap is more like a reflection of the we say of the of the society in our days. For example, for the stereotype that exists in our society. For example, that a woman doesn't it's useless for a work and for that reason doesn't receive the same salary as a man. Or for example, that the black people that is lazy and doesn't afford enough to gain a, a good salary, and that's so yeah, my perspective doesn't change. The wage gap is something that exists in our society because it's stereotypes and needs to be changed, and for that we need to change our perspective of all the persons that exist.
Elian.
So my general perspective hasn't changed. I think the wage gap is uh, like a barbaric thing that we still do to this day. It's not fair that some people get treated unequally just because how they were born, where they grew up in, and etc. But my partners here kind of opened my mind to some of the solutions that could be implemented to not really solve the issue, but like mitigate it a lot. That transparency thing with the salaries sounds like a really good idea.
What for conclude this section, this podcast, a nice farewell message, a message for audience, for talk about this topic. Final message, uh, Damian.
To talk about this topic.
Message for
Oh,
audience.
well, try to be polite to all the people. Don't judge someone for their appearance or what they are. Just judge them for how they are with you and how they work.
Elian.
A message I have for the people listening and watching this is that equality is really important, but we should not forget about equity too. Um, which is giving people what they deserve and what they need instead of just giving everyone the same things.
I'm sorry for the interruption. I forget. New. For me, the perspective is the same. Well, continue. Uncle Rafael,
My message for all it can be that do your best, even if there can be exist a wage gap. Doing your best try, you can reach big things and receive the same amount of salary in all companies that you want to work.
Rodrigo.
Well, final message for all the person of all the people that are listening this will be something very common to say that just don't judge a book for his cut for the cover. So yeah, don't try someone's bad for how they look. Like uh, my partner Damien said, instead of the judge them for how they look, judge them for how they act and how they work.
Well, in this uh, final this podcast, how said in the interruption, for me the things it's the same. It's very bad, and like a conclusion, this problem that we have to eliminate an injustice that it's due to stop it out and should not cease, considering it's the same job for the same person, both different gender. And this cause imbalance of gender and other things, other themes, other topics who the other topics that I'll talk about. But it's important uh, report if you suffer from this. And well, thanks for your time, other you and the audience. Thanks for your time, and we'll be sending each other talk this madam. Goodbye and really, really thanks.
Now what?